Welcome, everyone, to this briefing brought to you by the Israel Defense and Security Forum, IDSF. There is so much happening in this war right now, and there's just so much ambiguity about what will happen and Israel's position on so many different issues. Are we winning the war? Are we losing the war? What is the current state of affairs between Israel and the U.S.? So it's a great pleasure to have today Brigadier General Amir Avivi, the founder and chairman of IDSF, to answer these questions and more. General, thank you so much for joining.
My pleasure.
So, General, why don't we just start and jump in? What can you share with us that's happening right now in the war?
I think that the way you described it, ambiguity, is the best way to describe the last week or two. I can say that on one hand, things are moving on the cabinet's level and the army pretty much as planned. The chief of staff has presented the plans of war for the next stage. The cabinet approved these plans. As we speak, tens of thousands of reservists are being recruited, more than 40,000. Some of them are sent or were sent already to the Golan Heights, to Judan Samaria, to Lebanon, and we have brigades like Golani, paratroopers, and so on that are leaving other areas and moving to Gaza and getting ready to go in. And I had a chance with one of the highest ranking people in Israel to really sit and discuss really in depth the plans. And I can say that generally speaking, the way the army looks at it, it's a three-phase plan. The first phase already happened. It started after the end of the ceasefire with an attack on all the civil leadership of Hamas and, of course, also many terrorists. It continued by conquering all of Rafah. And when I say conquering, it's conquering, taking over completely Rafah. We experienced in the last week or two really some fighting with several soldiers that were killed in one of the last strongholds in Rafah. Rafah is flattened completely. And the IDF is controlling the whole area of Rafah. We also conquered some areas in the center and north of Gaza, but not dramatic. And all this was part of a first phase that was supposed to create the pressure on Hamas needed to release the hostages. And we were in a situation of a hostage deal being discussed, very close to Witkoff's deal, half of the hostages. This was led by the Egyptians. And then two things happened. One, we started seeing letters and demonstrations and in the Israeli society, people calling to end the war. And this affected Hamas a lot. And also, we started seeing all this issue of the Qatar gate and the investigations about Qatar, and this got Qatar very upset. And Qatar said to Hamas, don't negotiate, stop the negotiations, we can do a much better deal, we can stop the war. And Hamas, that was almost on the verge of doing a hostage deal, stopped the deal. And now we're in the situation that there is no deal, a part of this American soldier that the US managed to get released and is going to be released today. And therefore, the understanding is we need to go to the second phase of war. And the second phase of war will be conquering vast areas in the Gaza Strip and also detaching the society from the Hamas by opening areas to provide humanitarian aid in areas controlled by the IDF. It's a very big change. Until now, we're not bringing any aid into Gaza. They still have aid inside, but we're moving towards a reality where aid will be provided directly to families and not through Hamas, in order to prevent from Hamas any aid. This is very dramatic, but also the way the IDF is going to operate is going to be very decisive. And any area the IDF goes in and conquers will be like Rafah. All the infrastructure, all the terror infrastructure, and everything is terror infrastructure there will be destroyed completely. And the Gazans will be moved south towards Rafah, out of the northern parts. And this, of course, will first help moving towards destroying Hamas, but also create a lot of pressure on Hamas in order to try and release the hostages, and the plans take in account the areas where the hostages are. The third stage is a decisive stage that conquers the rest, what remains of Gaza. So the second stage might be conquering like 60-70% of Gaza, maybe more. And then there is the last stage. And now the army is recruiting the reservists and moving forward with the preparations. As all this is happening, and this is the big thing that is happening, the army is also preparing for dealing with Iran. From what I see, both the government and the army are very, very resolute in dealing with Iran. And now we are waiting to see the outcome of the discussions of the US with Iran, which, as far as we're seeing, it's not going anywhere, although in occasions they show some kind of optimism, but we don't see Iran giving up their nuclear sites and dismantling all their capabilities. And we are hoping that at a certain stage, the administration will understand that this is not going anywhere and will give us a green line or a green light to attack, or much better, lead an attack on Iran. Israel, one way or another, is going to deal with the Iranians. We prefer to do it with the US, but there is no scenario where Israel is going to let Iran become nuclear. If we see that they're not dismantling the site, they're just trying to earn time, Israel eventually will deal with this, and we're hoping that it will be in full coordination with the US. I must say that this week Israelis are feeling very worried about the dynamics with the American administration. Israelis didn't like at all the decision to stop attacking the Houthis and leaving Israel to deal with this alone. It's also, I don't think it's good for the Saudis. And also the fact that the US negotiated releasing American hostages and not all the hostages, this is not something that is making Israel happy. So the media is pushing a narrative saying, that's it, the US is not with us, and there's a bad relationship between Netanyahu and the president and so on. We saw that the administration asked the ambassador, the American ambassador in Israel, to do a press conference and really interview on Israeli TV and say that that's not the case at all, and we are coordinated. And yes, we don't necessarily align on everything, and US has its own interest, but there is definitely a support. And also Netanyahu spoke today with Trump, and Netanyahu is sending a clear message that the two countries are coordinated. But I must say that the atmosphere in Israel is a bit pessimistic, and people are worried. They don't really understand what the administration is doing. This raises concerns. We in IDSF are going to have a meeting with the ambassador this week, and we'll try to get a better sense of really what's going on. We're also meeting with high-level members of the Israeli government, relevant people that are doing the talking with the US, and we're also in touch with the top leadership of the army. And so this week we are really engaging with all the relevant leaders to really give our inputs, but also get a good understanding of what is going on. I can say that we understand that we need to really be proactive on media, on social media, pushing the right narrative that says we need to focus on winning this war. We need to strengthen our reservists. We need to unite. We need to reach all goals of war. We cannot reach part of them. We need to understand that we are not going to get the hostages without military pressure and humanitarian pressure and diplomatic pressure. Hamas is not going to sit without pressure, and we need to act. And we cannot wait. Every day that we wait, we're not moving forward, not with the strong Hamas and not with bringing back the hostages. And we cannot keep our reservists endlessly in reserve without operating. They came really in big numbers to the units with a very clear message to the Chief of Staff and the Prime Minister. We came to win the war. Don't waste our time. We have families, we have jobs, we're willing to sacrifice, we're willing to fight, but we're willing to do so to win the war. And this is something that is very important for the cabinet and the Chief of Staff to understand. We can tactically wait a few days until President Trump finishes his visit in Saudi Arabia, and the Emirates, and Qatar. But at the end of the day, we need to move forward and reach the goals of war. We cannot wait too much. We're waiting to see what will be the outcome of this visit, what kind of agreements and achievements the president will have. In Saudi Arabia, there were many rumors that he's going to announce a Palestinian state, that it's about economy, and he's going to announce that he's getting a lot of money for the US from these countries. There are many rumors, and the president himself is also building a whole expectation, saying that his announcement will be, big and historical and whatever. So everybody's really anxious and worried and waiting to see what exactly is going to happen. We'll have to wait and see. It's unclear. I'm waiting to see what will be the outcome. Moshe?
General, thank you for reviewing all of that. Everyone is very anxious to understand what will be with President Trump's trip. And people are also anxious for this hostage release today. And every time there's a hostage release in Israel, there's, of course, a sigh of relief that an Israeli citizen is being returned home. But it just builds this unrest of let's stop the war, let's try to get all the hostages back. And I'm curious what you think about the timing of this hostage release, obviously coinciding when the president is coming to the Middle East. But in terms of Hamas's game plan, are they, do you think, using this in a way to push Israel to stop the war? Do you think that they're going to try to kind of dangle more hostages out there as a means of slowing down the war and stopping the fighting in Gaza?
We saw, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, Abbas, President Abbas, talking in Ramallah, and then he started swearing and he shouted at Hamas and say, "You dogs, release now the American hostages." And the reason why he was swearing and shouting and calling Hamas dogs and demanding that they release the American hostages and not the other hostages is that they perceive that America is backing up Israel and is planning relocation and is supporting destroying Hamas because they're holding American hostages. Now, when they saw that the US is willing to stop attacking the Houthis on the understanding that the Houthis are going to stop shooting American ships, but continue to shoot Israel and Israeli ships, this gives a certain understanding to Hamas and a hope that if they release the American hostages, the policy of the US regarding Gaza will change. And this is what Israelis are worried about, that might actually happen, that if now they release the hostages, suddenly President Trump will say, okay, that's it. We don't support anymore destroying Hamas, or we're not supporting relocation, or we have to end the war, or something like that. And this creates a lot of concerns now in Israel. And I'm hoping that the Israeli government and the Prime Minister are really having the relevant discussions with the President, and that it's clear that there is no scenario that this war ends without Israel reaching the goals of war, destroying Hamas, bringing back all the hostages, and creating a reality that there won't be any terror organization anymore, or terror army in Gaza. So we have to keep, aligned and sharing the same values and goals regarding Gaza, and also regarding making sure that Iran won't be nuclear.
Now, assuming that President Trump's motivation for his trip is economically driven, he's trying to strike deals with the Saudis, the UAE, and Qatar. So if it's really focused on the economy, is there any messaging you think he would hear in those countries where they would push back and say, hey, we're only going to sign a deal with the US if the war stops in Gaza, or if the PA is appointed as a government in a Palestine state? Do you think that those states behind closed doors would make an economic deal contingent on what's happening in Israel?
So when you talk to the Saudis and the Emiratis behind the scenes, they wish to see Hamas completely destroyed. Why? Because their biggest threat is the Muslim Brotherhood. And the Muslim Brotherhood, the only place they control is Gaza. So there is definitely a wish on their behalf to see Gaza clean of Hamas. But at the same time, they're saying, listen, we cannot move forward with the normalization while you are fighting. We cannot do normalization when there is a war in Gaza and people are getting killed. So they want us to finish the war and win, not finish the war and not win. So I don't see them pushing an end to the war without Hamas being destroyed. That won't be clever and won't serve their interests. They might talk about some kind of path to some kind of solution in the future for the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. But I don't think they are highly appreciative of the Palestinian Authority at all. So it's a big question. What would be the demands, if there will be demands? I think that what the Saudis are seeking, they are seeking an alliance. They want to make sure that they get a pact with the US that cannot be changed every time there is a new president, something that is really stronger and will hold through time, that the US will defend them and equip them. The US will deal with Iran and with their challenges, and the US will really stabilize the region. This is what they really need. And at the end of the day, Israel needs to be part of this. But in order to reach this point, we need to end this war. We need to finish. We have to win the war now. Where until now, I can say in the last year and a half, people used to say, this war is political, Netanyahu is making political considerations. I don't think that this was the case. But now that we are getting closer to elections, which are supposed to be in November 2026, or maybe even a few months before, let's say July in a year. Now it's obvious that this is becoming a consideration because it's obvious that this government cannot afford arriving to the elections without having won the war decisively on all fronts, and maybe without peace agreements with Saudi Arabia and other countries. And now the clock is ticking, and every day that they don't finish the job distances their capability to reach the goals of war in time. And I think it's going to be very bad news for the right wing and the government if they don't win the war before the elections. And winning is winning all and reaching all goals of war. It's releasing the hostages, it's destroying Hamas, and creating a new reality in Gaza, and of course also dealing with Iran and signing these peace agreements. So we saw when the Prime Minister and also Ron Dermer spoke at the JNS conference, which we participated in. This is what Ron Dermer said: in the coming year, we're going to win the war and sign peace agreements. And he didn't say it by chance. This is the strategy. Now we need the US to be aligned with us on these goals and help us reach it together. But I think that one thing that Israelis don't realize is that this administration thinks very differently from previous administrations, and basically the administration is saying, you Israelis, you have your interests, we'll give you the tools, you do what you need to do. We're giving you munitions, we're giving you capabilities, we're backing you up in the UN. Do what you need to do, and we'll do what we need to do. We have other interests, we have other issues, we have economical challenges, we have more than $30 trillion debt, we have inflation, we have other concerns, we have China, we have Russia. So we're not going to stop. You do what you need to do. But we also will do what we need to do. We look at the American interests and where it's aligning, it will align. And this is something Israelis are not used to. When they suddenly have this freedom to do things, and they don't understand that they really have the freedom to reach their goals.
Now, General, the U.S. deployed a significant amount of warplanes and ships in the Mediterranean for their campaign against the Houthis. Now that that has come to completion, are they pulling back that force, or are they keeping it in the Mediterranean for future engagements?
So, as far as I know, they haven't pulled any forces out of the Middle East yet. Don't know what will happen tomorrow morning. But I think that when you're holding negotiations with Iran, as Ted Roosevelt said, speak softly and carry a big stick. So you need to carry the big stick and make sure that you have a credible threat on them if you want to reach something. I don't think the US is going to reach anything with the Iranians. The Iranians are not going to dismantle their nuclear sites. It would be very surprising to me to see them giving up and doing what Libya did. We'll be very happy to see this, but I don't see this happening. So the forces are in the Middle East, and I think we'll have to use them at a certain point.
General, final question, then I'll let you go. And thank you so much for taking all of these questions. And of course, our viewers and supporters very much appreciate your leadership in hearing all of this. If there was a U.S.-Israel strike on the Iran nuclear facilities, would that have any effect on an economic boom in the Middle East? Would it affect the economies of the Saudis, of the UAE, of Qatar, and of course, of Israel, or is it just limited to military implications?
I don't think that an attack on Iran is going to affect dramatically in the long term. I mean, or even in the medium term, the economy. I think that an attack on Iran, maybe on the short term, will affect the stock market or the prices of oil might affect. But we're saying all the time, a decisive attack on Iran, it's not the beginning of a war. It's bringing the war to an end. And following that, there will be a huge economic boom, especially if we normalize relations with all these countries and we open new routes of trade. So this is going to be very beneficial for the whole world, especially for the West. And just as at the end of the Second World War, you saw really how the West and Europe flourished for a very long time. It's going to be the same. You have to win wars in order to bring prosperity and security.
Brigadier General Amir Avivi, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you to all our viewers and supporters for tuning in. We will be back with you tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. here in Israel. Until then, stay safe, stay strong. Take care, everyone.